In this video, I'd like to give some additional thoughts under the introduction portion of 7 Steps to Learn the Scriptures. I suppose this would be part 2 of the introduction. In Proverbs chapter 2, Solomon gives an abbreviated 3 steps to learn the Scriptures, where I've given 7. In this process, I will be giving 7. And in Proverbs 2 verse 1, he says, "My son, if thou wilt receive my words," well, that will be my step 1 of believe. "If thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge and lifteth up thy voice for understanding," okay, so that would be urgency in prayer. That'd be step 2, prayer. "If thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures," so there would be the motivation or how motivated we should be, and that would be step 4 under study. And verse 5 says, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God." And in the passage here, you'll see thee and thou, thy, and thine. These are singular pronouns when addressed to an individual. Okay, if it's a corporate body, you might see it on occasion used that way, but it's usually a singular pronoun. And Solomon is providing what is necessary for an individual to understand and find the knowledge of God. There's a common saying that says, necessity is a mother of all inventions. And the idea of that is necessity is an implication of desperation. Desperation often drives a person to seek a solution. Desperation. Necessity is a mother of all inventions. Okay, when a person is sick, they become desperate, and now they're interested in learning how to be healthy. When a person loses their liberties or are in threat of losing their liberties, now they become desperate to seek a solution, to learn how to have liberty. For example, this past year, the pandemic is causing a desperation in people, and they are seeking a political awakening, and this is occurring worldwide. Why is this? It's because people are desperate and they recognize there are tyrants lying about the pandemic when in actuality it was a planned demic. This political awakening, I don't know, maybe it will lead into a spiritual awakening. I'm not really thinking so. If you go back to the early days of this country, there was a spiritual awakening, the Great Awakening under George Whitefield in the mid-1700s, that led to a political awakening, the liberty of this country. I'm not sure if it will work the other way around. Alexander Fraser Tytler said it this way. He said, "A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury, pay themselves. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship." Okay, and we can see in our country that dictator is silencing oppositions. Okay, whoever is pulling the strings of Joe Obama is the dictators, will be the dictators. Alexander says, "The average age of the world's greatest civilizations has been 200 years. Those nations have progressed through this sequence from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependence, from dependence back into bondage." The bondage is the desperation. You'll find that vicious cycle through the book of Judges. Okay, the desperation. You see, God motivates man to work through his physical appetite. The wise Solomon stated in Ecclesiastes 6, verse 7, all the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not yet full. One of the Proverbs he records in Proverbs 19, very similar. Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger. Okay, those hunger pains drives a person to the necessity of work that is needed to satisfy those appetites. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, Paul put it this way, and it's interesting that a portion of this passage is found in the Soviet Union's constitution, and it reads, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Okay, the key there is he would not work, not could not work, would not work, had the capability of working, but wouldn't do it. Neither should he eat. Why? Because hunger pains should drive a person to work to satisfy one's appetite. The root sins that led to the sin of sodomy is found in Ezekiel 16:49. And here's how the 4 sins of Sodom go. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. Idleness is the devil's workshop. Those root sins led to the sin of sodomy and transgenderism and going after strange flesh. Now, God motivated Israel under the Old Testament covenant through hunger, through the necessity of wandering through the wilderness, and he's trying to teach them that they need to live by the words of God. Deuteronomy 8, verse 1. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, and to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. To prove thee, that was the desperation. Verse 3, he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. So the Lord used hunger as a driving force to cause a desperation in Israel, to teach them that they need to live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Now, most people will not seek a solution until they're desperate. Marriage counseling. Most will not go to marriage counseling until they're desperate. The salvation is generally towards the poor, because the poor are more desperate. The calling on the name of the Lord implies desperation. Now, what if a person in their wisdom had a self-imposed desperation? Jesus put it this way, Matthew 5, verse 6. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Okay, Solomon said, if thou criest, desperation. If thou seekest, desperation. After what? Gold and hidden treasure. That is the intent, what the Lord wants us to have. And that is the driving force, and a self-imposed driving force seeking to find the knowledge of God. Psalm 119, verse 162, he put it this way: I rejoice at thy word as one that findeth great spoil. Okay, if you're digging in your backyard and your shovel hits something hard and you dig it up and there's a chest. Wow. You open it up and there's gold coins, silver coins in there. Wow. Man, you'd be jumping everywhere, would you not? That is how we should be toward the words of God. Okay, in the political realm, people would say, it's the economy, it's the economy. Why? It's because the satisfaction of the appetite comes through physical labor. Okay, another word instead of desperation, could use desperation, would be diligence. A self-imposed diligence. Why wait until you're sick to study about physical health? Why wait until you lose your liberties to discover what you need to do to maintain your liberties? Why do you wait till then? Would not preventive maintenance service better? Hebrews 11, verse 6, it says, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Diligently. 2 Peter 1:5, Peter put it this way, and beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. Be diligent. Solomon wrote in Proverbs 4:23, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, it says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, when thou risest up, and thou shalt bind them for a stone upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and upon thy gates. Sounds sort of kind of fanatical, isn't it? That's what the Lord wants from us. He wants us to be a fanatic, not about religion, not about politics, not about sports. Okay, he wants us to be a fanatic about his words. His words. See, diligence is a self-imposed desperation. Okay, are you going to wait for your car to break down to, oh man, I should have did this? Okay. Preventive maintenance requires faithful diligence in understanding what is needed for that machine. Sometimes desperation is too late. You see, so in our self-imposed desperation, we need to be diligent, hunger and thirst after righteousness, and recognize that Satan and man will seek to deter us away from our diligence. They will seek to discourage one away from his personal diligence. And we need to consider and think that we need to seek after the words of God as the average person would seek after a buried, hidden treasure if they knew the general location of it. So the Lord wants you and I to be hungering and thirsting after the words of God, and I do believe you will experience a joyful reward of understanding and finding the knowledge of God.